History is indelibly marked by the foolishness of God. Take the case of Noah, for example. The Lord told him to build a 3-level barge half the length of the Queen Mary, larger in area than 20 basketball courts, and as high as a 4-story apartment building. And God commanded him to build it hundreds of miles away from any body of water deep enough to sustain it. And then Noah was given 120 years to complete the ship. Can you imagine the flack that he must have endured? And yet, when the appointed day of judgment came, the jeers were drowned in torrential rains and floods. Only Noah, his family, and the animals he had loaded into the ark were spared. Belief in God's foolishness led to deliverance. Consider also Joshua's conquest of Jericho. This Canaanite stronghold had to be overthrown if the Israelites were going to take the promised land. It was locked up tighter than a nuclear test site. How could they get in? Should they surround the city and shoot flaming arrows into it? Should they scale the massive stone wall and use battering rams to break through the gates? Or should they cut off Jericho's food supply and wait months for its inhabitants to starve to death? General Joshua consulted with God and returned to the Israelites with this plan. The armed men were to march around Jericho once a day for 6 days with 7 priests blowing ram horns while the Ark of the Covenant was carried behind them. And on the 7th day, they were to circle the city 7 times and shout on command. And then the wall would collapse so the army could move in and take the city. Had Joshua lost his mind? No, he had chosen to follow the foolishness of God, and it brought him victory. Throughout Scripture, God worked in ways that to us seem foolish. And still, He loves to baffle us with the unexpected, unseemingly impossible. Just when we think we've got Him figured out, He puts a crimp in our intellectualism, reminding us, yes, again, that in His foolishness lies wisdom. The Corinthians lived with upturned noses, breathing only the esoteric air of their own intelligence. So Paul tells them how to be truly wise by trusting in the foolishness of God's wisdom. I want to ask you today, how do you see leadership? Do you see leaders simply as servants, simply as under-rowers and oarsmen on the bottom level of the vessel? Regardless of how prominent or authoritative, all believers are merely oarsmen on a ship, responsible to their captain, Jesus Christ. We are also to treat our leaders as stewards or managers of the affairs of God's household, which is the church. So have you given an under-rower the position of manning the rudder of your life? Have you given a steward the deed to your heart? If so, your ship is sure to sink. Your heart's foundation is sure to fracture. But if you let Jesus be your Lord, He will steer you to His wisdom, and He will scrub the pride from the walls of your heart. It's required, says Paul, that those who have been given a trust must prove faithful. God is not nearly as concerned with fruitfulness as He is with faithfulness. Faithfulness is what He honors. Faithfulness is what daily brings us back to the foot of His throne to ask, Lord, how can we serve You? Sometimes we're so preoccupied with counting our spiritual apples and oranges that we forget to spend time watering our roots by just serving Jesus. So try this. Try to forget about being fruitful for a while. It will happen naturally if you let it. His living water will soak into the depths of your soul, and you will produce fruit. Fruit is the natural result of the plant's right relationship with the ground. So it's true that when we have the right relationship with Christ, we will produce fruit. Let me finally close with this important point that Paul gives us. He says we can't see another's heart accurately. We have too many vices. We have too many inconsistencies and impurities. There's too much pride in us. So the question is this as we close. Is there a log in your eye? Something that's keeping you from becoming a wise fool? Paul has shown us how to become one. He has said to be teachable, not to exalt others, to be faithful, not to value too highly the opinion of others, to let God be the judge. If you struggle in one of these areas, ask the Lord to help you to overcome it. He will be faithful to help you. Washing the pride from your eyes, He'll replace your foolishness with His wisdom.